This is a big one, boys and girls and whoever else, whatever. Today, we are getting a little bit more competitive. So I've been wanting to get into competitive crawling of some sort, class 1, class 2, something like that. Eventually, the SCX-10, the deadbolt, will get turned into probably a class 2 rig. Maybe class 1, probably class 2. We'll see how that goes, but that's a very expensive proposition. And also it's winter, it's getting cold, I'm gonna be inside a lot. So what I wanna do is get involved in mini comps, mini scale comps. And that means we need to build something a lot more competitive than either the FCX24M or the Bronco. And today, we have just the parts to do it with. As you can tell, made another run through the Injora catalog, picked up some parts, and we're gonna build a comp chassis. Sort of a comp chassis. I mean, it's obviously not gonna be the most competitive thing out there, but then again, I'm not the kind of guy that thinks you can just throw money at a problem and become the best driver in the world. So what we're gonna do is put together a semi-competitive rig and hopefully enter some competitions and see how we do, and whatever upgrades we need from there, we'll figure it out. Why don't we come in a little bit closer, we'll take a look at what's in the packages here and see what we got. We'll start putting things together, see how it all fits up, and then take it out, hit the rocks, go crawling. Okay, so what do we have here in this big pile of goodies? Let's start off at the back. So we got the Injora, the 6-channel radio and transmitter set. This is just a necessary item, pretty cheap. It kind of looks like the Fly Sky setup that comes with the FMS and the Rock Hobby and that kind of stuff, but just with a little bit different button setup. We'll see how that works. I don't know, never used it before. I've never used any of this stuff before, really, so we'll see. The brushless ESC to go along with the Fat Viper motor. I'm super excited about this. I've been wanting this for a long time. This is the 2000 kV. I was thinking about putting this in the, Bronco, but I think this is gonna work much better in the IR60. And also, it would not be compatible with the interior that we just put in there. So pretty excited about this in the IR60. The aluminum transmission to go with it. The crawler gears, of course. IR60 body, I'm super, super excited about this. This thing is dope. Really looking forward to putting that together. White deep dish wheels. I feel like those are just appropriate for this kind of a truck. I mean, white steelies on a Yoda, that's pretty much required. The +4 aluminum axles, the carbon fiber LCG chassis with a couple of different battery mounting options. I'm not sure which one's gonna work best. Speaking of batteries, we got the Ovonic 850. These are a 80C and they're huge. And I didn't know that until I got them. I'm not sure if they're gonna work or not, but we'll see. We'll take a look at that once we get to that. The 7-kilogram servo, I don't know. I mean, I probably should have gone with the 11, but I got the 7. Came with the mount and servo horn, so we're gonna run those, I think. King Trekker tires, super soft, super sticky, but also have a fairly scale look. I don't want to go full comp with this build. This is sort of a comp scale hybrid build. I'm not into the full comp builds. They look like spaceships to me. I'm not into it. We're gonna reuse the brass skid plate, the brass links, the steel drive shaft, and the Treel shocks from the Bronco, as well as the rock lights to give it a little extra flair. And yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I think this is gonna be way more competitive than the Bronco would be. I'm a little nervous about running the Treel shocks. They're kind of stiff. I want to find some softer springs for them. Otherwise, really excited about everything in this package. So let's get to building. Okay, now I'm gonna struggle through this with no instructions, just like any of you would at home. And I figure the best place to start is probably with our skid plate and our chassis. Now I went with the Injora Universal LCG carbon fiber chassis. I haven't had any experience with this before, but I'm pretty excited to take a look at it. Looks like it comes with some instructions, plenty of hardware, a little bit of Velcro tape, and let's pop it open and see what we got. Okay, a couple bags of hardware. This looks like the extension for the high trail models. Crossbars looks like ESC mount perhaps. And our frame rails, super light, very cool looking. I'm digging the carbon fiber, it's awesome. I love all the shock mounting positions. Hopefully all these shock mounting positions will give us the opportunity to make these trail shocks work properly. We'll see. All right, so the chassis does come with this rather poorly laid out sort of guide. I don't know how you're supposed to tell which hole that goes through, but I can figure it out. There's so many different kinds of hardware in here and none of it is marked. I guess you're supposed to just figure out what's what. These look like spacers, maybe for your shocks. I don't know, man. Nothing is marked. There's no instructions. Not a big fan of that. So there's two sets of holes in the front half of the frame rails. You see here, there's two sets of holes. One set of holes on the back half and one set of holes on your instructions. So again, not real clear. All right, so I've gone ahead and assembled it in the rear set of holes because that's the way it lines up with this chassis the best, and that's also the only way that's shown in the instructions. So I'm not quite sure what that front set of holes is for, but maybe it's for a different rear chassis section. They don't explain that very well. However, we're gonna set it up like this for now, and we'll roll with it from here. Okay, bare chassis assembled. Next, let's go ahead and get our motor and transmission together. Now, like I said, I went with the Injora Fat Viper 2000 kV. Now this motor I'm super excited about. Been hearing a ton of good reviews about it and its low speed crawling capability. This thing is an absolute little beast. Motor shaft did puncture through the package. Got it that way, but you know, that's okay. Looks like comes with a pinion gear. Man, now this thing is pretty slick. Awesome little outrunner. I'm really excited to see this thing work on the truck. Let's get our pinion installed. Comes with a tiny set screw to lock the pinion gear in place on the shaft. The pinion gear itself does not have a slotted hole in it or anything like that. It's just a round hole. The only thing holding your pinion gear to the shaft is this little tiny set screw. So we'll make sure, give that some Loctite. It comes with a couple extra. That's nice, I guess, but I don't know. Would be nice to see a slot machined in this shaft or something. Set screw is protruding past the gear teeth. So you better hope you get that mesh right. I don't know, it doesn't seem like a great design to me, but we'll figure it out. Now this is the Injora all aluminum transmission that's compatible with the Fat Viper motor. This is the transmission for the 370 motor, so it does position the motor a little bit higher overall than their standard transmission does, but this is the one you have to get to run with the Fat Viper motor. So, you know, it is what it is. Stainless steel gears inside this transmission, which I'm really happy about. Bearings as well, which I'm really happy about. All right, motor and trans made it up together. Let's go ahead and drop this in the chassis. Well, the chassis setup doesn't work with the Fat Viper as built from the factory, so that's cool. Got to move your little cross brace forward. All right, motor and trans mounted up. The gear reduction in this is pretty crazy. All right, suspension links installed. Next, let's go ahead and get our axles prepped. Now, I went with the Injora plus 4mm all aluminum axles, not the portals. So these are not their portal axle design. I'm not a giant fan of portals, particularly for the scale aspect, but I'm really excited about these axles. Now, they are a bit wider than a stock TRX4M. That I'm definitely looking forward to. They needed some extra width. I think this truck could benefit from that a lot. Also, the added weight of an all aluminum housing will put that weight nice and low where it needs to be. So let's go ahead and get these prepped. I might switch over some of the brass components from the Bronco, such as the knuckles and the hubs and that sort of thing. Then again, I might just pick up this truck, its own set of brass. So for now, let's go ahead and get these assembled and prepped and mounted on the truck, and then we can see how it performs. All right, front axle assembled. For now, I gotta get the steering servo on. The axle comes with a bunch of these O-rings and set screws that I'm not really sure what they're for. Let's get the servo on, we'll get it mounted in the frame. We'll figure out what the rest of this stuff is for. All right, here's our Injora aluminum servo mount. Match our axles. This came with a servo, otherwise I probably would have ordered a brass one. The servo also came with this aluminum servo horn. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that on this truck as well. And here is the star of the show, the Injora 7kg micro servo. Looks like that comes with a couple of plastic horns and some hardware. A lot of good reviews about this thing. A lot of people saying you have to go with the 11. A lot of people saying the 7 is just fine. We'll see, I suppose. All right, that's our front axle assembled. There is nothing to hold these hex hubs in. So I've already dropped a pin out. Not a huge deal as long as your wheels are in place. Front axle is all together. Let's go ahead and get that mounted in the chassis, and then we can mount our shocks to it and see how it lines up. So I just realized just now, as I was putting this together, that I have the front half frame rails on backwards, and that's why everything's kind of pinched in at the top. I was wondering why it didn't quite fit up right, and that's because I have these frame rails on the wrong side of the chassis. So without disassembling the entire thing, I'm gonna go ahead and swap this around, and I hope that it doesn't cause any problems with the assembly. Okay, front end reassembled in the proper orientation. Everything fits a whole heck of a lot better now. And we'll go ahead and install passenger side shock. All right, there's our front suspension on, and I gotta say this thing is starting to look really cool. Really cool. Let's go ahead and start with the rear axle now. This one should be a lot less complicated. Okay, that's our chassis assembled, basically. I think the next step at this point is going to be to go ahead and get our wheels and tires on. And what I picked up for this are these Injora white Steelies. These are the deep dish, pretty basic. I think every Toyota since the dawn of time has had a set of these on it at one point. And I really dig the design. I like the low offset, and maybe I can throw the brass hubs on there from the other wheels. I do also have these Trio brass bead locks. I could run these, I guess, but they are exactly the same as the ones that are on the Bronco. And I don't really want to run the exact same wheels on two different vehicles. I could, I guess. Maybe I will steal the brass rings out of these and run them in here, if that'll work. I'm not really sure. We'll take a look at that. And then for tires, went ahead and picked up the Injora King Trekkers. These ones, I forget, I want to say these are like 63 millimeter. Does it say on here? 62 by 22 millimeter. So these are the bigger size for a 1-inch wheel, but they're not quite as big as the 1.3 version. So I think these will look pretty cool on the truck, and these should give us some really good ground clearance. They are pretty soft. I might need a different foam in them. The foam feels like it might be a little bit much, but we'll see once we get them on the truck. So why don't we get these assembled on our new wheels? We'll see how it looks, and we'll throw them on the chassis. Okay, I wanted to take a second here and look at the different ways these wheels go together. These are kind of the more typical style beadlock that you see on the market when they have the internal bolts on the back side of the wheel hub. Generally, you have these two halves that bolt together, 6 bolts around the outside there, bolt together, sandwiching the ring in between. These Injora wheels, I'm not sure how typical this is. I haven't seen a setup like this recently, I guess. But it's like 2 completely separate halves of the wheel with 2 different faces, and then they come together at the hub. And so they're held together in the center, as opposed to around the outside like these trio ones. That's just kind of interesting. I don't really know if it makes any difference one way or another. One thing though that is a little bit unfortunate, and I'm sure they do this on purpose, these Injora wheels don't work with the trio rings. So I will have to pick up some brass rings. You can see here the hubs are not compatible either. They have a different center bore size, making them incompatible with each other. So I'm sure they do this on purpose, but that just kind of sucks. These are interesting. They feel pretty squishy, very soft. They definitely would not survive at all without a foam. Very, very soft. Pretty sticky. You know, pretty sticky. Let's go ahead and assemble these on our wheels. All right, man, that's a good looking wheel and tire package. I really like that. It's definitely very light, especially compared to the Trio, the brass beadlocks. Very light wheel and tire package, but I think the weight in the axles and the suspension of this thing is going to more than make up for that. Why don't we get the other 3 mounted? We'll get them on the truck, see how it looks. Okay, back with the roller. This thing looks great. It looks absolutely killer. It's super light. I'm not real sure how I feel about the suspension setup yet. We'll see once I get everything together. Next step is going to be get our battery tray mounted. I went with the double-decker ESC battery tray. I'm hoping that I can get everything mounted up inside the cab. Okay, battery and ESC tray mounted. I'm not exactly sure where it needs to go in terms of, it looks like there's some adjustability forward and back here, but I went ahead and mounted it as far forward as possible without it contacting the motor. So I'm pretty excited about this. This is turning out to be a really, really dope build. All right, next in line, we have the IR60. Now this was one of the major inspirations for this entire build. What I really wanted was a TRX4M that was smaller, more scale appropriate, and that would be more fun to wheel around on my little indoor course with my son. My son's got the FCX24M, very scale rig, very cool looking. The TRX4M is also very cool looking, highly detailed, but it was just a little bit too large. And so I wanted to grab something that would be a little bit smaller, bring the overall size of the rig down a bit, and allow me to have a little bit more fun on the indoor course, as well as something that's a little bit more competitive. So let's get it installed. Injora stickers, of course. Looks like some very brief instructions, so that's nice. Look at that. Look at that. That looks so good. I'm so hyped about this. I've been wanting this, and the purple one in particular. Not a giant fan of the other colors, and I really like how they have opposing color grille and accent pieces. I think that really sets this truck off. Comes with your headlights and taillights, that's awesome. Rear cage and bed cage section. I love how it comes in this nice padded box. That's pretty slick. Palmdale, come back to me. I need you and I love you, baby. Palmdale, Palmdale, come back to me. 'Cause that's where my heartache began. Heartache began. All right, there's our rear cage assembled. That went together relatively easy. This thing is super slick. I love how this looks. Let's get the bed sides on. Okay, bed section all together. That went together relatively easily. Man, it looks great. The purple on this is so cool. All right, moving on. There's the body together, starting to come along. Oh man, that looks so good. I am pumped for that. So cool. And they give you a couple different grill choices. I'm gonna go with the square just because I think that looks way cooler and way more scale and authentic. This one looks interesting. It's cool. It's definitely a vibe. Not really my thing, but that's an option. All right, now what we've got is these little accessories, mirrors, wipers, and these little fender vents. That's a good looking body. I gotta say the purple is two slightly different tones. I don't know if you can pick that up on camera. It doesn't bother me that much. It's close enough. And this thing is a good looking truck. So why don't we go ahead and get it mounted? It comes with its own mounts, obviously, front and rear. So let's go ahead and get the front mounted. While we get the bumper mounts on, we'll go ahead and mount the rock lights that we swiped off of the Bronco. I figured that would be a good accent for these. The Bronco's got plenty of light. This truck could use some accents of its own. Go ahead and slide our bumper mount in place there. Okay, it's not real clear to me how these headlights are supposed to mount. It seems like they kind of just jam into the hole they've provided here. Then I'm not real sure what you're supposed to do with your wiring. There isn't anywhere to mount it or attach it to or zip tie or anything like that, so I think you kind of just stuff it in the cab and call it a day. I'm not sure what the plan is but we'll tidy it up as best we can.